Welcome back to the Hot Rod Hangout Podcast, Episode 2. It's just me and Ashley tonight.
Whoop, whoop.
So how's everybody doing? Hopefully y'all had a good New Year's and stayed safe and didn't add to the population, subtract from the population, or go to jail. And if you did, hopefully you had bail money.
Or at least had a really good time.
So I guess we'll start with an update on our building that's non-existent.
At the current moment.
They were supposed to come this week and put it up, but, with the holidays, I guess that got held up. So we're not getting that done right now. Hopefully next week we'll have that. So what did we do over the New Year's?
What did we do? Well, as anybody that's on Facebook, I burnt our Christmas tree. I mean, it was just the two of us, but that's, on a night like New Year's, it's better to stay in and drink at home than it is to go out and drink.
That is true, but it was still a good time.
Yeah.
They had fireworks. Neighbors had fireworks and a fire, and we had a little bonfire. So, I guess I'll turn the microphone over to Ashley, and she can tell us what's on the agenda for this month.
This month, I don't think we really have that much going on this month.
We may try to make it down to Immokalee for the Rockabilly.
Oh, yes, that is right. I'm sorry. I forgot about that. Yeah. In 2 weeks? Not this weekend, not next weekend, but the
January 20th, I believe.
Yeah. That's it's a little bit far for us, but it's like 2-3 hours? Something like that.
Don't know if we're going to take the 54 Michealangelo down or if we're just going to cruise down to check it out. I know there's some guys from Florida Rats and Rods that'll be there.
And we met them before, which show? The
Daytona Rod Run.
That's right.
That's who kind of put us on to the Rats at the Beaver, which was the first show we went to, or Rat Rod show we went to, and then also the Iron Horse, the Bad Apple show, which we will definitely be hitting up again because that was an awesome.
And we won an apple.
And we do want a Bad Apple trophy. So, excuse me. With the building not being here, that was going to be the topic of getting moved into the building and stuff like that. But since that's not a thing, we're just going to kind of go over the 54, how we got it, the stuff that we had to do to it.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually found that car semi-local to us. I was kind of just in the market for something that would get us, like a driving project. Didn't really need a whole lot. Something that we could cruise in. And
at the time, we still had the
desk on.
Huh?
Don't smack the desk.
I'm sorry.
Silly.
It was my watch. At the time, we still had the 40 that was sitting in Caden's yard. So that was literally just a cab and chassis. And
we weren't even going to use the chassis on it.
No. But so we needed something to cruise around in while that was sitting there just growing into the ground.
Yes. And the plan for that truck was kind of what the new owner is doing to it. He chassis swapped it and kind of put a motor in it. That was the one that we referenced last episode. We called it Fancy.
And he didn't waste no time doing that.
He did not.
He got home and posted the chassis that was currently on it on Facebook Marketplace.
Yes. So we found the 54. I'm not a giant fan. We weren't really looking for a 50s car. I've kind of always been a truck guy. But the 54 was kind of in the budget that we had set for ourselves. It was original enough that it kind of fit that category. But it also was slammed. It was, it's a Survivor car. I mean, original paint. Still has the inline 6-cylinder. Someone did swap a 5-speed out of an S10 in it. So, that kind of, it got rid of the 3 on a tree and stuff like that. So we went to Daytona, ironically.
Had to borrow a neighbor's trailer.
Yes. We went and we picked it up and kind of got on the road, and it was like,
well, let's back up just a quick sec, because when we were there in the process of strapping it down, you ran into the guy's garage to go to the bathroom, and he said, "Oh my God, you have the 54 on the back of your shirt." And it was the Daytona. Was it the Daytona shirt?
No, it was a Rat Fink shirt.
Oh yeah.
And it's it actually has an orange 54 Chevrolet on it, and the front license plate on it is soon to be. So I bought that shirt, and I guess it, kind of told the tale that I was eventually going to own a 54 Chevy. So we get the car loaded up, or try to get it loaded up, and I can't get out the car because of the fenders. The car is, again, very low. So Ashley's never driven anything with a clutch.
Nope.
So I'm too big to climb out the window, but she thinks she can. So,
and mind you, it's in this, I don't even remember what month it was, but it was hot as all get out. So
it's always hot in Florida.
Well, yeah. But, I mean, even in a shorts and a t-shirt, we were both dripping with sweat.
Yes.
And I'm trying to climb out of the window of this thing. And, of course, there's no airflow in the cab because, windows are just cracked open.
So, kind of give her the, nickel tour on how to drive a car with a clutch. Get it loaded up. Couple stalls and chugs, but we got her loaded up and got her strapped down the best we could with what we had, and brought her home, got her unloaded. We kind of went into a little bit of the first trips that everyone had in it. It was severely low, so it ended up my mom and dad have a concrete pad at their house. They were gracious enough to let us borrow. I threw a set of new front and rear shocks in it, thinking, oh, well, it's sagging because of the shocks. It's still scraped.
And that's also with us because the muffler was laying on the ground. And
yes, we had to
tightened
do...
up.
We did a intake manifold on it because it was leaking, and then once we took the intake manifolds off, we noticed that they were cracked. So we had to replace those. And got shocks on and everything like that. Went to back it out, and it was still dragging on the ground. So we ended up it had 4-inch lift blocks in the rear. We ended up putting a set of 3 inches on it. It probably could go up another inch or two and probably wouldn't hurt my feelings or really hurt the look of the car. And the front end I had ordered, it had what I assume was heated up springs on it. So I ordered a set of 2-inch lower springs. So stock minus 2 inches would have put it where I thought it needed to be. It didn't change the height at all.
Nope.
So
it didn't bounce as easily.
Yeah, I mean it did stop it from grinding on the road while you were driving it, but it was still really, really low. So I ended up ordering a set of stock springs to put in it, and it still sits probably 2 inches lower. So I don't know if previous owners have lowered if they put lowering kingpins on it or spindles or whatever. They definitely, it sits probably 3 inches lower than stock with stock springs. I don't know how. I couldn't figure it out, but the end result was me and Ashley can now drive in it without it constantly grinding on the ground. So we've
we've managed to go over some speed bumps with it at a couple shows.
Yeah, if you're creative or if you've driven lowered vehicles, you understand the principle of speed bumps are no longer straight. You got to hit them at an angle and kind of hope for the best. But we've taken it to we have a swap meet first Sunday of the month, real local to us. We've taken it there a couple of times. We've taken it to, Market and Bearing was the first show we took it to. Ashley referenced that in the first episode. That was awesome that, other people were taking pictures of us cruising in, and we've taken it out on a couple date nights, and, we're just enjoying the car, and, it's definitely not going to set any speed records. It is the Orange Ninja Turtle, Michealangelo, for more reasons than one. It's orange, but also it's slow. But it will get out of its own way with the 5-speed, and we just keep making improvements to it, and
it's going to be the car that I learned how to drive stick in.
And we've taken it to open parking lots for Ashley to try to learn how to drive stick shift, and she's taken it on some back roads, and she picked it up pretty quick. I mean, it wasn't.
While I still had panic in my eyes every time somebody would from oncoming traffic, I'd freak out.
Yeah, it takes a little getting used to, and I mean, she's never really been in anything, with hot rods, the shaking and rattling, and what's that noise? You don't have a radio to turn up, but and
you just have a Bluetooth speaker, and that can only go so loud.
And you can't really hear it. I mean, the Bluetooth speaker is kind of just for parking lot pimping, or when you pull up to a red light, you can listen to the 10 seconds of song before the light turns green. Yeah. It does have 2 windows at 60 mile an hour for its AC system.
Mm-hmm. I can remember plenty of times we've been cruising around so far, and I'm like, I wish this light would turn green so our AC would turn on.
Yeah, it's, we do live in Florida, so it stays, relatively warm. Right now it's kind of tricking us. It was like high as 65 today or something, which I know other people all around the country are like, in 65, I wish it was 65. Well,
I mean, it does drop down into the 40s at night. So
yeah, I mean,
our lows do get low.
Our low is their high. But, that's one thing about Florida is, we have the nicer weather, but, our seasons don't really change. So basically, I mean, we've just kind of went through it, nut and bolted it, made sure that, it was going to make it. We've taken a couple longer trips with it, longer being, 45 minutes away or whatever.
And stopping halfway through to make sure we have gas, because we can't.
No, I mean, it made it to Market and Marion in one trip, and it made it to Zephyr Hills in one trip. And, we're just out enjoying it. And once the 32 gets done, which we can go into that story on how we got it next if you want to. If it's still around, my plans for that car would be either to go through the front suspension. There's a couple janky things that were done to it. We solved some of it, but some of it still, could be changed. But either go through it, put new pivot bolts and get everything back tight, or do like a Mustang 2 front suspension on it. want to put probably a small block with a automatic transmission, and then get somebody professionally to run the exhaust. Because when we did the exhaust / intake manifolds on that, it I'm a half-ass welder, but I can't weld exhaust, and of course, the new intake and exhaust manifolds didn't line up exactly with how the other ones did, so we had to do some chopping and cutting and rerouting. And
but I got to use what's that word? The flex pipe.
She got to make her own exhaust with flex pipe.
Yeah.
And it's like I said, it's a driving project, and it is for sale. I mean, just like everything in the yard.
Just about.
Yeah. I mean, everything is for sale. Everything has a price. Some things would. Some things are not. Yeah, some things are for sale, but you wouldn't pay the price to get it. And I understand. I wouldn't either. So Ashley wants to experiment. It has the serape blanket covering the seats. She wants to experiment a little bit and try to get, still keep the serape blankets, but do it a little bit more, like it looks like it was meant to be, not just a blanket sitting on a seat.
On there. Yeah.
And basically leave the rust the way it is. Maybe do like a Poppy's Patina or Shine Juice, I think was the other.
I can't remember.
But, something just to protect it, to keep it from rotting anymore. But like I said, it's a Survivor, so we're not looking to restore it. It's kind of past that point. Like the story Ashley said about the old guy, like, oh, you'd have to restore it. Well, no. This isn't, it's not a number one numbers matching 69 Camaro that, it's not a restore. It's, yes, you could restore it, but you'd have more money in it once it was restored than it would be worth. So, it's not a special car, Elvis didn't take the car out. Like it's not a notable car,
But and that reminds me of this thing that I saw, because on Facebook it's all cars, even on my Facebook. But there was like a meme or something silly, but it was like, buy a $2,000 car and put 40 grand into it. We're not looking to do that. We're, just fix it up enough to cruise around and make it look good, and in our own way, definition of good.
Yeah, and I mean, it's, we've said it numerous times before. I mean, it doesn't matter what the car looks like. I mean, if it's pretty and if you don't drive it, then it doesn't matter.
What do they say? Shiny paint causes stress.
Shiny paint causes stress, yes. A good, for instance, which my dad will be on next week, and he'll kind of talk about, basically the same, standard questions. But the one guy that he had reached out to this guy, and he had, believe it was a Nova or something, and he had reached out to him, and they got to talking and kind of struck up a friendship. This car culture seems to draw people in, and you find your friends. You find people that they have the same mentality as you. They enjoy what you enjoy. And he had said, like, yeah, I'm selling this car, and they got to talking about other cars that they had, and he's fortunate enough that he's got quite a few cars. And Dad was like, well, like, what do you, I have to come up and take a look at them and, like, hang out, new friend, whatever. And the guy's like, yeah, like, I was going to paint this one and I was going to do this to it, but I make my cars too nice and that I don't want to drive them. And, you know, that's to me, I mean, that's a waste of money. I mean, you know, some cars out there, you know, they are meant to look at, and, you know, they're rare. You don't want to drive them. I can understand that. I can appreciate it, but for me, I want to be able to get in it and, you know, hammer down, you know, cruise, you know, if you got kids, throw the car seat in the back, man, and go cruise. Enjoy your car with your family. Enjoy your car with your friends, your significant other. I mean, shoot, there's girls out there with cool cars. I mean, throw your husband in the passenger seat. Take him out to dinner. Make him pay, but you cruise, you know. But, you know, and that's kind of just where we're at, you know, and the 54, if we still own it when we get done, like, it'll be a cool car, and Ashley will enjoy it, and who knows, we might get to cruise together separately, and I look forward to that. So we'll move on to the 32 Ford truck that we picked up.
Once again, another marketplace find.
Of course. You know, I'd come across this 32, and, you know, Deuces, anyone in the car industry knows that 32 Ford, the Deuce, you know, it's a iconic car, and, you know, 32 coupes, they pull big money, you know, the Milner coupe, you know, everybody wants the Milner coupe, everybody wants a 32, you know, cool nickname, right, you know, right from factory. You ain't got to come up with a name. It already has one. And I come across this 32 pickup, and, you know, I'm a truck guy. I like it. You know, I've wanted to do a bare metal truck. The price was right on this. The gentleman that had it, awesome guy. I hope to have him on the podcast because he has a lot of cool stories and stuff. I mean, you know, and cool stuff of going to car shows, and, you know, he's kind of living the life that we're trying to, you know, get to.
But he's also one of those, yeah, he has our big dream shop and 15 projects going on and all this, but he's still so down to earth. I mean, y'all have communicated even after the fact, and
yeah, that was part of the deal. Was when I bought the truck, I said, you know, I didn't really. We negotiated a little bit, but I didn't negotiate a whole lot with him. But part of his end was, I want your phone number, and, you know, I want to be able to, you know, communicate, because he is very knowledgeable. He has one of the sweetest coupes I have ever seen, and he's currently, I believe it's a Roadster he's building, Trog flathead build.
One of many.
With Tidewater, out of Ocala, Bellevue area, which is another guy I would like to have on. You know, they're more of the traditional guys. When we went and picked up the 32, we agreed on a price, and I backed the trailer up, and we started loading the truck up, and we kind of got to talking about my plans for the truck, and I mentioned Rat Rod, and I watched his face kind of melt, like, oh, we lost another one. But at that time, I had a different view of rat rods. My version of a rat rod doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have cobwebs or shitty welds, or, you know, it was just more of a, you know, it doesn't have paint. It's not, you're not trying to look for perfection. And talking to him and talking to other guys, you know, I kind of realized, you know, wait a second, it's not really going to be a rat rod. It's going to be more traditional. Which he had a set of brake backing plates for the front of that truck, and I was looking for some, so I reached out to him. He said, "Oh yeah, I got a set." We agreed to buy them. And
he had more than a set. He had a whole freaking box, and he said, "Pick the ones that you want that look the best."
He, he's Model A parts and stuff like that. Early Ford parts. He has a lot of stuff. I mean, he scours swap meets and stuff like that. So when I met him for the backing plates, I said, "Hey man, I said, I'm not really building a rat rod." And he's like, "What?" I said, "No." I said, kind of got to thinking about it, and I'm really not building a rat rod. I'm kind of building more traditional. And his eyes kind of lit up like, yeah. And he still owes me that sticker, by the way. So if you're listening, Ryan, you still owe me that sticker. It's not a rat rod. It's just not finished. But it's going to be small block powered. It's got a 9-inch in it. It's going to be an automatic. I know I keep saying that I'm going to change everything to automatic. I can drive stick. But in a 32 cab, there is about less than zero room for a 250-pound guy.
And anyone else.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
even
meant for two people, and you can't fit two people.
Yeah, even my dad's 34. He's went, which we'll talk more about his next week. He's had to do stuff to be able to fit, and my mom is she's a tiny lady, and
she fit perfect. When
yeah. My mom. If it was two of my mom in that truck, it would have been money. But we weren't in 2023. Our body shapes are not what they were in the 30s. Not 5'4". Not size 29 waist. Especially once like his truck is channeled over the frame. My 32 is channeled over the frame. So you lose 6 inches of headroom, which also means that the seat can't go 6 inches higher, or your head is in the roof. But that's part of dealing with your bullshit. But on the conversation with Ryan, when I picked up them backing plates, I asked him a question. I was kind of going back and forth on a name, and a name kept popping up, but I wasn't sure that I wanted to name the truck that. It kind of fits the way I wanted to build it. But
it also brings a little bit of history with the truck.
So, Ryan, the gentleman that I bought it from, owns Moonshine Acres RV Park, and he puts on the reliability run that we are shooting for that 32 to be done for. So in the conversation with Ryan, I asked him, "Hey, you can tell me no, but I really want to name this truck Moonshine." And he said, "I would love for that, as long as it's not a rat rod." I said, "Well, it's not going to be a rat rod. I'm going to build it traditional style." So that's the plan for that truck. And again, that truck will, if it works out the way I want it to, it may not look like this for the reliability run, but the end goal for that truck is a bare metal, no paint on any of the body besides the firewall, which is already painted black. I'm not going to strip it down, but everything else will be bare metal. Aluminum fuel cell or fuel tank in the back,
which we already
have. 3 deuce Super 97s on a small block 350, turbo 350. Something that we can go cruising. If I have to hop up on 75 and run a couple exits, not a big deal. If I want to have a little fun in the parking lot, and I can. It's not going to be not going to be a drag race car. It's not going to be, I don't even, obviously it's going to be quick because power to weight ratio. Truck probably is going to weigh like 2,100 pounds.
With you in it.
With me sitting in it. So it's not, but I'm not building it. I'm not looking for 1,000 horsepower. 300, 350. That'd be more than enough for that truck. It's going to be a V8 on a skateboard essentially. So that's, but just trying to get out and, kind of enjoy the truck and, let people see it. And, that's kind of going to be mine and Ashley's first full build. Along with other people that are going to help along the way, but majority of that work is going to be, me and her.
Majority of the work's going to be you, let's be honest.
Well, I have to have a tool bitch every once in a while. Or a beer bitch. Bring me a Twisted.
That's not beer.
But hey.
You're going to have a mini fridge out there with you.
I am. But, and it's also going to be, we're going to try to get a YouTube channel going, specifically, with the stuff that we're working on, because, a lot of these internet builders, they have lifts and they have 4,000 square foot shops, and it kind of makes the little guy look unobtainable. And I'm not having a big shop. I'm not, I'm gonna have closed in. It's gonna be 15 by 22 and a carport, metal carport. And I don't have the fancy tools, which some things aren't going to be able to get done. Like, I would love to bead roll a new floor or bead roll door panels. Like, I don't have a bead roller, therefore it's not going to be bead rolled. That build's going to be a lot of, using what we have.
Which I think is part of building your own. I mean, I don't know how many different YouTube channels you'll work with what you got, and there's still some badass cars that roll out of garages
definitely.
Or carports.
And there's quite a few YouTube. And there's builders on Instagram too, but we don't have the money to call up Vapehead and tell them send me a chassis. Bolin Brothers builds a beautiful chassis, but I can't even afford to call them up and tell them to send me a chassis, and they're good priced. I mean, then it's good quality and stuff like that. But I have a chassis, and it's a sought after chassis. It's a 32 chassis. I mean, and there are some good parts that came with the truck. I mean, it has a Super Bell drop axle, chrome spindles, chrome drums. It does have some good parts in it, and it's already been channeled over the frame, recessed firewall. A lot of the work's been done on the truck.
And he already gave us panels to replace some of...
Yeah, the cab, the bottom of the cab is rotted. The truck's 90 years old. Or 92 years old now. But I do have all the panels. We'll get the truck built before we do the rest repair.
Yeah.
Because if it has to go to the reliability run, still rusty, then it'll go to the rod run, still rusty. I mean, we're gonna get it driving and fired up, and and get that stuff taken care of. But other than that, I mean, we're just gonna enjoy the process and kind of embrace the suck of hot rods. I mean, these cars, when they were built, they were never designed to make it to 2024. I mean, the Mustang was a throwaway car. If you had, if you put 50, 75, 80, 100,000 miles on a car back then, you were a mechanic. Like, they just didn't make it that long. And it's funny because back then it was we fix stuff society, and now we're in a throwaway society, and cars are made to go longer now. So, I mean, they're not worth owning after a period, but
just driving it off the lot.
oh, and the price of a new car, a new truck, or and it's like, how do you afford that? And definitely, if you want to, they don't have any. The cars are fiberglass, or the new Fords are aluminum. They're thin aluminum tin cans, and they're still asking $80,000 for them. And it's not just Ford. I mean, Chevrolet has their quirks, Dodge has their quirks, and I drive a Dodge. I mean, but everything is. I think we need to get back to the roots of cool, and everybody that we run into, or I won't say everybody that we run into, but most people that we run into, if you're in a classic car, people identify with it. And, even coming back with the 54 on the trailer, we stopped to get some food. We're located close to the Villages, which is a retirement community, 55 and older. We stopped to eat, and 3 people before we even made it into the restaurant was like, "Is that a 54?" Yeah. Oh, my grandpa had a 54. Or, I remember driving my dad's 54 around the neighborhood, or everybody has a story. And
that one guy, it sounded like he almost had it sold to him, and we hadn't even brought it home yet.
Yeah, and everybody can identify with it because either they had one or they knew somebody, and there's a story like, oh, my first date was in a 54. Oh, that's cool. Like, and you get the people that I wouldn't have done it that way. Okay, well, you don't have to. That's the cool thing. Like, I did it this way because it's mine. If you want to do it a different way, buy it.
And then you could do whatever.
And then you can do whatever you want to do to it. So, and with that being said, just we appreciate everybody that comes up, and we look for, if I see a cool car, I'll chase you down. Like, I want to talk to you. I want to hear the story. We ran into a couple people at the Market of Marion show, and the guy's like, "Yeah, this is what it looked like," and I'm like, well, can't even tell what it is, but it was a car he identified with, and it had to come back, and that's what I appreciate the most. Like, and some people have a bigger budget. It's they can bring cars back that to pristine condition or showroom quality, or back to what they remember it being.
And it's sometimes it's just a sentimental thing. I mean, we don't know anybody from the 30s, but
no. And I mean, there's a bucket list car I believe you're referring to that Ashley is on the hunt for a 27 something. She doesn't care what it is, as long as it's 27, because it holds that year has a significance to her.
Which I don't even know had a significance until the beginning of 2023. Just to give backstory, I guess, because we're not just going to throw out that date and not say anything. So my grandma passed away in the beginning of 2023. And not sad because, she's out of pain. That's the biggest thing. But when my mom gave me her little obituary card, because, my grandparents were strong Catholics and they had the whole big funeral and everything like that. But anyway, gave me the little obituary card, and I did not realize that both my grandma and my grandfather were born in 1927. And that now holds a special place in my heart because I thought they were years apart. I didn't know they were born in the same year, 6 months apart from each other. But yeah, so now that holds a special place. But if it happens, it happens.
Yeah, I mean, there for a long time when I was growing up, my dad wanted a 57 because that's his birth year. And he's since changed that, partially because 57s, well, all Tri-5s have basically gotten outrageous in price. The Barrett Jackson, Meekum, those car auctions, it was way better when they weren't televised. It's even classic cars, we kind of touched on a little bit with Caden last week, and the barrier of entry. It used to be, a $5,000 to $10,000 hot rod was, a decent cruiser driver hot rod. Yeah, it wasn't perfect, but, it would get you point A to point B. And now a $10,000 hot rod, you're probably going to be working on a little bit. And
just to get it home.
and not just working on it to, not necessarily working on it to make it run, but to work on it to make it, the things that you need to do to it, the seat position, especially in Model A's and stuff, people, they put boat seats or bomber seats and there's no padding. Well, if you're going to use it, you might want a little padding, or trying to get the seat up on a channeled truck. Be able to put a little bit of space under the seat so you can get your legs up. And the $15,000 hot rods, they'll buy you beautiful cars. I mean, they're beautiful, but
they're still not done because when they go from owner to owner, you're still going to
have to tweak it, and you find stuff that you have, the old owner thought was awesome, and you go to reverse it, and whether they did it to cover something up or whether it happened after the fact, or you find something that you didn't know was there, and it starts a snowball. I mean, the 54 was supposed to just go get intake and exhaust manifolds, and by the time it left there, actually it just went for a gasket because the intake was leaking. It wasn't even. And then we get them off. Oh, well, that's really dented, and there's a crack there. So now we have to address that. And, oh, well, now that we did this, now the exhaust doesn't fit. So, all right, we got to mock up the exhaust. Well, now the exhaust hangs lower. So now we got to jack the car up. And, oh, well, now this, and it just turns into, a snowball effect.
But in the same sense, those couple weekends that we did go over there and work on Michealangelo, I mean, unforgettable.
Oh, of course.
Not just because I ripped half of my fingernail off in the manifold, but also because, it was you and me working on something, and I learned a whole lot. And every chance that there was a nut, bolt, gasket, whatever, that needed to be done, you were handing me the tools first, which, like I said in the last podcast, growing up, I was told to go inside, and you're handing me tools, and I'm under the car using flex pipe for the first time that you sent me to the store to go get, and I had no idea what I was looking for. Because, sometimes I do still look like that idiot girl that walks into the auto parts store and doesn't know what I'm looking for.
And that's the thing, and especially with dealing with, cars that may not have came with the motor that you're looking for, and I'm not shitting on parts guys, because there's some awesome parts guys out there, but.
And gals.
And girls. But there is a lot of, what does this fit? Or what are you looking for? Who made the Chevy Silverado? It's like, come on now.
You need windshield wipers? Okay, make, model, year, engine.
4-wheel drive or 2-wheel drive, like, and sometimes, like, a good for instance is, when we built the 82 S10 little drag truck. I mean, you send mom into town because or dad would be greasy and I was too young to drive. So you send mom into town and it's like, oh, what is it? Oh, it's an 82 S10. Oh, what motor? It's got a small block in it. Well, it didn't come with a small block. I didn't say it did. Like, and you may not know if you pull a motor out of a junkyard or buy a motor off of Facebook or Craigslist or OfferUp or any other, or Swap Meet, you might not know where that motor came from. You might not know where that rear end originally came from.
But you have, and I feel like maybe I don't think it's just in our town, but you've gotten good about you'll send me the link to the actual parts so I can walk in and show them and say, this is the part number, this is what I need. No questions asked. I'm on a mission.
Even then, they tend to want to know what it's going on or what it's, and sometimes that works, but other times it's,
well, it's
a Miata with a small block. LS powered Miata. Like, it didn't come with an LS. Well, no, it didn't.
But even when, I can't remember which trip it was exactly, but I went into one of the auto parts stores in town, and I went in there on a mission. I knew exactly what I was getting, and I just needed to figure out where it was in the store. And one of the guys came up to me and was like, oh, do you need help? And I'm like, I'm looking for this. He's like, oh, I'm pretty sure it's down that aisle. And he walked me down. He's like, oh, what are you putting it in? In the back of my head, I was like, oh, geez, here we go. But when I told him it was going into a 54 Chevy, he's like, oh, hell yeah. And then just started asking me all these questions. And I knew some of the answers, not all of them. But it made me feel better because he wasn't pestering me. He was just curious. And I feel like when I go in there with the specific.
Yeah. And I mean, also, a lot of times when you're working on something, you're already frustrated because you're having to go to the store in the middle of the job. And, you're looking for that specific part, or you bring the old part in. I know, like, on the small block that's going in the 32, we bought it. It had power steering. It had AC. Well, obviously the 32's not having power steering and it's not having AC. So that's going to be hey, I need a belt this big. Find me a belt this big. Water pump, or not water pump, but your hoses. I need one that looks like this. Some S pattern, zigzag around. And it's going to, I need this. Well, what does it fit? Well, I don't know yet. Show me your hoses. Show me your hose.
And luckily, we have, 4 auto parts stores in town.
Yes.
Plus, I work 45 minutes away. So currently, I can also pick up.
Yeah, there's 3 or 4 auto parts over there. And
there's online too. But
yes.
That's a little more difficult when you don't know exactly what you need.
Right.
But they do give good descriptions on measurements and whatnot.
And even sometimes, I mean, we ordered a couple things for the 32 that had to get sent back because, they say they work, and maybe they do, but it's not going to be right for our application. I have a specific look in my head for how I want stuff ran on that truck. Steering wise, I want it to be crossover. I want it to look like it was built in the 50s and 60s. I don't want a one-way rack. Not saying that they don't work. Once I got it here, it didn't look right for the situation. And we ran in, we went to a show in Brooksville, and we seen a couple of them installed on cars, and I was like, yeah, that's not what I'm looking for. And
They were still very well done, and the
yeah,
few
I mean,
that we did see,
it looks great,
yeah.
but it just didn't fit the idea of what I want the truck to look like in the end.
And I feel, not to, but I feel like a lot of the ones that we did see, they had the whole cover. Like, they had the whole hood and whatnot and the side panels to the front of the car. Like, we're not looking for that. So everything will be exposed. So we want it to look good. And I think it did look good on the ones that weren't exposed because it was all nice and neat and tucked up, and it just looked like a clean, classic car. Well, it's not going to be pristinely clean and classic.
Yeah, and then you can get away with a lot of stuff. I mean, if you run a hood and side panels, you know, if like the 54, I would, when it comes time to do that swap, I'm not against. Obviously, I would try to find a small block Chevrolet and a turbo 350, but if I come across somebody that wants to sell me an LS and a 4L60 for cheap, well, then it may end up with an LS, but that car has a hood on it. You're never going to see it. Yeah. You know, that's why I wouldn't be opposed to a Mustang 2 front suspension on it.
Well, let me ask this. If, for whatever, you get offered an LS or you take me to a junkyard and we find one miraculously, would you prefer that to go into the 32 and the small
No.
one? No?
No. The 32 will not have an LS in it. I don't care if I got one delivered tomorrow for free and everything was there and the commercial minions came in and put it in for me. That truck will not have an LS in it.
And that's more for...
The reason is it's going to be a no hood, no side panel car.
Right.
That truck, you can see everything. I want it to be that way. It needs to have a small block, big block, Hemi. I don't really care what else, but it needs to have old school car in it. You know, it will, there's guys that put Mustang 2 front suspension. And when I'm talking about Mustang 2, that's upper and lower control arms. It's usually coil over or coil sprung. Way easier if you were going to put air ride on it. It's definitely easier for that. But in my opinion, those cars didn't come with that. So if it's going to be exposed like the 32 is, it needs to have old school feel to it. The rear end is going to be 4-linked. No, it didn't come with 4-link. It came with a buggy spring, but it's got a bed. You're never going to see the rear suspension. Right. You know, you may see a bar, but it just looks like a traction bar. So it's not a...
Once the bed actually has a bottom to it, not just...
Well, yes, the bed's going to get dropped 5 inches. So that'll be channeled down as well to match the cab. But Dad's truck, the bed isn't chopped down. It isn't set down, and it looks good. So I mean,
but I think it's all he has slightly different body lines.
Not really, the same bed.
No? I mean, even on the cab.
Yeah, same bed, same cab, similar cab. I mean, but yeah. But if you're gonna tuck it in a caddy or Michealangelo 54, I mean, no one's going to see it. Unless you pop the hood, which, it's less offensive to me if it's hidden under a hood. And obviously the benefits, the fuel injection, which, there's now companies that have almost perfected fuel injection that looks like a carburetor. Holly has a good system, Edelbrock's had that system for a while now, which Edelbrock and Holly are now owned by the same people, I believe. So you have that. But, there's more options if you're going to hide it. Mustang 2 front suspension. It's obviously going to ride better. It's going to track better. You have the advantage of being able to put power steering on it. There's a lot of advantages to that swap. And obviously, you don't have to do an LS if you do the Mustang 2. If you do the Mustang 2, you don't have to put an LS in it. But it kind of opens it up when you're not looking at it. Because if we're being honest, the LS motor is ugly. It is. There for a while, I was a big proponent on the whole LS swap the world thing. Because, the LS is our generation's small block Chevrolet. They're relatively easy to go to a junkyard and find. They're pretty simple in stock form. If you kind of know what you're looking for. And even if you don't, you can drop an LS. Obviously, if you're looking at any kind of power or reliability, you'd want to delete the displacement on demand and the active fuel management. But, they're super easy to make power. There's thousands of recipes that you can pull up on the internet. Denma, Sloppy Mechanics. He kind of blew the LS world apart with, take a junkyard LS, throw some Chinese hairdryer on it, and go make 800 horse. They kind of made it, that kind of told you how to do it. But the more you put on them, the less reliable they get. And yes, there are an S load of them in the junkyard to just go throw some more on it and kind of continue on. But to me, classic cars should have classic motors. But I'm also not going to hate if you put a modern motor in it for the convenience. It's kind of whatever's going to get, some people, have to have AC. Some, in vintage air, and there's a couple others out there that'll put AC in most. They sell an application for most cars, classic cars and retrofits or older systems, kind of converting them to the newer style, compressors and dryers and stuff like that. And they're doing awesome work. But fuel injection, the ease of fuel injection is, somewhat, I see the benefits of both, but in my opinion, the small block Chevrolet or any classic motor, obviously I'm a proponent for the small block. They are an awesome motor. You can do a lot with them. And nothing sounds better than a short exhaust on a small block Chevrolet that's got a little bit of lope to it. But now they're coming out with cams for LSs that sound really good too. So it's whatever your preference is. And we're not here to say like one way is better than the other. If you show up with a Model A and you have an LS in it, still going to like the car. Again, this goes back to, if you don't like the way I did it, well, buy it and do it the way you want to do it. I'm a diesel fan. There's a lot of rat rods that have been, with the 4BT and the 5.9 Common Rail Cummins, and they're cool. Don't know if I'd ever want one, but they're cool to look at, and black smoke out of stack and white smoke off the tires is always cool. So, and it's whatever you want to build. Like, if German cars or European cars, like if you're, and then there's that whole subset of Volkswagen guys that are just, I mean, they're just out there.
Doing their own thing.
But killer cars coming out of there, too. I mean, Volkswagen buses, Vanagons. I mean, I feel like all car guys, classic car guys or mini truckers or whatever category you want to fit in or you feel like you fit in the most, you got a soft spot for Volkswagens. And, just basically whatever makes you tick, do it, enjoy it. And you don't have to pigeonhole yourself into one section. Like, I loved my little S10. I love my jacked up truck. I love hot rods.
And fat caddies.
And boats. One of my bucket list cars that I forgot about last time was a 66 to 69 Lincoln Continental with the suicide doors. Black on black, mob steels, big rims, laying on the body. And there's just something about a big old boat that's just laying on the rockers. But that's, if that's not your thing, do your thing. We're not here to tell you that our one way is better than the other. If you like 4 cylinders in a Honda Civic, go for it. Other than electric cars.
Oh, jeez.
They're taking over the world.
Or blowing up.
Yeah, and the electric cars, I mean, no one can deny that electric cars, the performance is there.
But let's also just take a moment to, last year at SEMA, the videos that we watched, there were so many electric cars. And then this year for SEMA, well, I should say this past year, there was hardly any.
Yeah.
Which hopefully we're reverting back. I mean, you drive your Prius, so I can drive my 2500.
My Ram identifies as a Tesla. Y'all are counteracting and if you're into electric cars, that's cool too. I mean, we seen at the Pittsburgh Auto Show, we got a chance to go to that. Philly Auto Show, rather. Somewhere up there in Pennsylvania.
Dreadful state.
There was a Tesla there that was, it was bagged and had custom wheels on it. And it looked cool. I mean, cool.
We appreciated the work that was put into it, and it was badass looking. Just not our cup of tea.
Yeah, I mean, and right next to it was a Grumman van that was laying body, and next to it was a rat rod with a diesel motor and 22 5 Alcoa semi wheels and a little kid slinging T-shirts.
Oh, and they had his bike that as they were crossing the bridge to come into Philly, the bike halfway fell out of the truck. Yeah. But that's part of the venture of all of this, is pulling on the side of the highway because your bike's falling off, or getting halfway to your destination, pulling over for gas and realizing, oh, I don't have a strap on the back of my car, or on no, it was the front.
The front.
Yeah. Luckily it was in gear and didn't roll off, but
no, it rolled.
It didn't roll off.
Right. It had the back strap. So, anyone that knows strapping cars, your front strap pulls it forward and your back strap is supposed to pull it back.
Mm-hmm.
Our back strap was holding it forward. So,
yeah. By the grace of God, because I don't even remember. It was a clean cut. It was rubbing on something, and it was a clean cut.
It found something under there to get, and the 54, we haven't really, we figured out a better way now, but at the time we hadn't really figured out a good way to strap it down where it wasn't rubbing, and that was the longest trip it took. Mm-hmm. And we arrived at our midpoint of our destination and went, oh, that strap's missing. And, we ratchet strapped it. Luckily we brought more ratchet straps. And we ratchet strapped it back tight. And I got to driving, and I was like, man, this trailer's kind of pulling like shit. And our trailer usually pulls really good, especially behind my truck. With the drop hitch, I mean, I got it pretty level, and it pulls pretty good. So when it started pulling funny, I was like, well, let's check around. Go to look at the car, and the car's like 18 inches off the back of the trailer, and the tires almost back to the back strap. And I was like, oh, that's probably not good. So we bumped it, and we got her back on there, and
But it's an adventure. It's
only had probably 40 people look at us funny while we were sitting in a gas station blocking. Usually it's the people blocking diesel pumps. We were blocking the gas pumps.
Well, we were next to it. You could still get one car around us to go to the gas pump, but somebody had stopped there to get gas. So then people were looking at us like, why are we blocking the drive around it? And it's like, the parking lot for the gas station was too small.
Yeah, we picked literally the world's smallest parking lot for a gas station. But hey, we made it there, and you know it. And the car got to sit on the trailer all weekend.
Yep.
But
Daytona trip for reference.
Yeah, that was the turkey rod run. Michealangelo in jail all weekend.
Yeah,
wasn't behaving. Well, the road was not behaving.
No, but we learned lessons. We had adventures, and we still had a kick-ass time, and yeah,
met some people, and you know, got to hang out with, you know, the turkey rod run is a very, very big show. And, you know, it's awesome to anytime you get to go out and talk to people and hear what they got in the works and what they're building and stuff like that. You know, the internet has kind of made it hard to quote unquote debut stuff. It used to be all the builders were kind of building for whether it be Grand National or, you know, the Pomona, or, you know, people were unveiling at these shows, you know, mini truck shows, Slam Fest, mini camp out, mini Nats, you know, all these shows. You know, you had to wait to see what people were bringing, and it kind of got you pumped, because, you know, you're going to go see these people that, you know, you may talk to them, but they're kind of keeping it under wraps, because, you know, you want to be back when I had my S10, and, you know, the scene around our small town growing up was we'd kind of went to the mini truck stuff, and, you know, other than the people that you hung out with on a daily basis, or you could sneak a picture or sneak a peek while you were over at their house, like, you know, it was S10s were on 18s. I mean, that was, if you could get your truck to lay on a set of 18s, you were the man. And, you know, there was kind of a race to 20s. Everybody wanted to put 20s on it, but it won't lay on 20s. Well, so, you know, you kind of kept it a secret. And I was fortunate. The shop that my dad worked at was one of the first people to put an S10 on 20-inch wheels and lay it on the ground. And it had a V8 in it, which was completely unheard of at the time, which, you know, Justin Smith and his dad, awesome people. And, but you didn't know that that's what they were working on. It was just, hey, like, what have you been up to? Oh, the truck looks good. Psh, wait a second. Those rims are bigger. Like, what? Or, you know, the shaved door handle. I mean, there's been so many trends that people didn't even think were possible. And these builders were coming up with cantilever suspension and things that you never seen. And you couldn't just go on Instagram and see them building that car. And now you can, you know. One person that kind of comes to my mind is Voodoo Larry. If you're not following him on Instagram, go follow him. He's an awesome builder. He is building a wagon out of a Mercury, I believe. And it is I mean, it's beyond cool. I mean, and there's a bunch of guys. We could go on for an hour just talking about people that inspire us. Some local guys, some internet guys, some YouTubers. Uh, I mentioned the inspiration that kind of got me like, hell yeah, I want to build a bare metal truck was Carl Fisher with Japan Customs. That Dodge, it's an awesome build. It was featured in the Sonic movie. Um, you know, you got Chad Stroop with Lucky Tramp. They're down here in Florida. You got Murpho in Texas building cool stuff. Um, and then the Godfathers. I mean, Gene Winfield. He's been building for years and still putting out cool stuff. I just seen he painted something for SEMA. Like the dude could retire and live on his accolades, but he's still out doing chop classes, teaching people how to do this. Like, he's a great ambassador for this culture, and we want to kind of bring our spin on it. We want to get people local to us, or eventually, maybe try to do a couple phone interviews and get some of these people on so everyone can get a perspective that there isn't a checklist. Like, your car doesn't have to be this, this, and this. It can be whatever you want it to be. And the only limitation, I don't want to say the only limitation because money is a big limitation, but the only limitation is kind of your imagination. And I mean,
and I don't feel like money's such a big limitation because you're going to work with what you got, but also how much patience you have.
Right. And I mean, but the money thing, I mean, the fancier tools, get you better results. I mean, there's no denying that, if you're doing a sail panel on a chop, it's way easier to do that if you have an English wheel. Can you do it on yeah, you can. It's a lot easier to bend a radius as opposed to putting it over your leg and, yeah, that's close, and beating it. What's the phrase we always say? Beat it to fit and paint it to match.
Yep.
Well, if you're not painting it, it's got to look pretty, but with everything, just kind of, it's a frustrating hobby. It's not always sunshine and rainbows, but the friends that we have met, and we look forward to meeting others that, kind of share this, we're all a little crazy and, in our own ways. And we want to meet other people that maybe have a different perspective or a different way of doing things that, maybe we can adapt and, or adopt and say like, yeah, that way's way easier than the way I was planning on doing it. And, there's
just learn from each other and feed off of each other.
Build cool shit, hang out. I mean, there is a couple shows that, coming up, and when we get closer, we'll talk about them. Like I said, the Rockabilly show, I really want to go to it because that's kind of our style of music. And some of the guys will be down there, and there'll be some cool cars, and that's kind of it's less show, more cruising, which is more kind of our style. So guess at that point we're gonna end this off. Please like, share, follow the podcast. If you could download the episode, that's even better. You can find us on Facebook at the Hot Rod Hangout Podcast, and also on Instagram at the Hot Rod Hangout Podcast.
Yes, and those links will also be in the description of the podcast.
Yes. So, is there anything else that you want to close it out with?
I don't think so. Just tune in next week, and we get to meet your dad.
Yeah, we have my dad coming on next week, and
That'll be a good one.
yeah.
And we'll go into more depths on his 34 and all the exciting adventures so far with it.
Yeah, so till next time, cruise your shit, man.
See y'all.
Later.